Welcome. I welcome you all. And I love you all. I love you all. And one of the essences of the way I teach is to try to express it in a way that everybody feels it, either through words or energetically, directly from my heart to your heart. The energies go out to a lot of you. I don't know whether everyone feels them or not. But I send them. And besides me sending the energies, Shakti seems to be surrounding the satsang on its own, working whatever she wants to do. Her way, not my way. So as a person, I send out love and energies, and Shakti does her thing in the background, or his thing. Today, I wanted to talk about how miserable is this spiritual trip. There's nothing easy about it. There's nothing quick about it. There's nothing definite about it. And the problem is, there are so many different teachings. And there's no absolutes. There's Buddhism. And Buddhism can be broken into the Theravadan or Southern school, which is the early Buddhism, which taught only about nirvana and attaining nirvana by ending all desires. And then there's the later Buddhism, Mahayana school, such as in Vietnam, and later in China and Korea, Japan, 500 years later. The emphasis is on helping others, compassion, helping people to understand themselves and yourself, working lifelong to unfold everything in you to be of greater and greater help to others. And the emphasis here is on emptiness and how emptiness and form go together. How emptiness is the container of forms and forms are the filler of emptiness. And then there's Advaita. And Advaita says everything is consciousness. And you are that. And then others in Advaita, such as Nisargadatta, says everything is consciousness, but conscious is an illusion which you are watching, and it's separate from you. These are not reconcilable. This way of looking at things is not reconcilable with each other. Even the systems of Buddhism are not reconcilable with each other, nor are the paths that people practice on to reach the certain end of that particular type of Buddhism the same as the end of another type of Buddhism. Advaita is even more dry than Zen. Zen, because of its relationship to Lao Tzu, has a naturalistic kind of bent towards nature. Not so much Advaita. Advaita is very bare bones. Robert, I've got to say, exuded no energy whatsoever. For all intents and purposes, he was dead to the world, alive only to consciousness. but he didn't seem to enjoy it. There are some who would say that this type of enlightenment is enlightenment without bliss, and they're not incomplete until you've attained enlightenment with bliss, which means that out of the emptiness, when you're trapped in this absolute void, love comes to you. Either it bursts out of your chest all by itself, or somebody comes to you, which you fall in love with desperately, to the extent you totally devoted to this one person, whether it be guru or a lover. You bow to this person. You surrender to this person. You lose your personhood and only think of the other. And in that other, you can see God, you can find God, you can feel God. And once you can feel it in her or him, you realize it in yourself. Once you see it in the other, it's just a short period of time before you find God in yourself. And this God is filled with energies and ecstasies and bliss, filled with Shakti and healing energies, and energies that make you move and do things. This is enlightenment with bliss. Another way of putting this is, you can consider every school of teaching like a mountain. Buddhism, for example, is a mountain. And you go up the Theravada mountain, and you're there at the top. You realize nirvana. And then you see there is a higher, this is not the highest peak on that mountain. There is a higher peak just 3 miles away. And you have to tread the new path towards that higher peak of compassion. I'm just using these words as an example. This is not the truth, but it's an example. So then you say, how do I get to that higher peak? Swami X says such and such. Trungpa says such and such. Muktananda says something entirely different because he's not a Buddhist. One Zen master says one thing, another Zen master says another thing. And you grow very confused. You don't know who to believe. They're not talking the same thing. They disagree with each other. You go to one, he gives you a koan. How do you realize God when looking at a tree? Or what is the sound of one hand clapping? Or how do you become one with the mountaintop? Or how do you blow out a candle at the top of a mountain? Another gives you a different kind of koan, Buddha's finger. Another gives you another koan. Then you go to a Soto center and they say, those koans, they're for dumb people that have a lot of time. Just sit. Sit quietly with yourself. Feel all the energies within yourself. Feel the energies that want to make you spin and turn and twirl and walk and do something, and instead do nothing. Don't even think. Just do nothing. And you'll notice that after a week or two of doing nothing, sitting several hours a day, when you sit, your body will begin to grow flexible and yet very erect. Your spine will align properly, and your brain will get very heavy, and thoughts will disappear from your mind, and you'll seem to sink into a sleep while you're sitting up. This is what Ramana calls conscious sleep. It's not sleep at all. It's a different body within you, called the causal body. And its nature is forgetfulness, where the mind does not function and make note of things. And then there are other bodies. There's the subtle body of energy, the body of thought, body of emotions, and the Turiya state, which is the fundamental state of beingness. When you first get up in the morning before a thought arises and you're just resting in beingness, that's Turiya. And if you can stay in Turiya long enough, you would feel the bliss of Turiya. But you see, you're saying to yourself, what the fuck is Ed talking about? What is the way for me? And then now we have this Buddhist going from the Southern school, the old school, the Theravada school, now walking up the mountain to the school of compassion, the Mahayana, whether it's Zen or some other Mahayana school. And he starts reading about the way. And one guy says, at 21,000 feet, turn left. Another one says, at 21,000 feet, turn right. Another one says, at 21,000 feet, you back down 500 feet and then go right and then go up again. And you wonder, who is correct? Well, you see, they're all correct. They're all with a different path. They're all with a different path. They're telling you how they did it. Or they look at you with the problems you have and they tell you where to go next. But the casual reader from the outside would make no sense of this. I must get 2 emails every day with somebody asking me because they're confused, because Ramana says one thing and Nisargadatta says another thing. Or another guru says such and such, and Krishnamurti says this. Wow, somebody else says something else. Which one's true? I don't understand. I'm confused. Please tell me what is true. Well, here's the truth. There is no truth. There is no path. There is no way. These are all concepts. Concepts which have no reality in the real world. Here's the deeper truth. Ramana and all the stuff he talks about, Nisargadatta and all the stuff he talks about, Robert and all the stuff he talks about, Muktananda and all the things he talks about are pure bullshit. They're conceptual schemes. But what is the point of them? Each one tells a lie because he wants you to go beyond concepts and get into a certain state. Robert tells a certain kind of lie to quiet your mind and to give you a feeling that you finally have comprehended the highest truths and you can finally stop searching and just go within yourself. The seeker's seeking is ended. He knows the highest truths, so he can shut down the mind that's twirling, 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 and just be himself or herself. Just be in himself and begin to feel instead of think. Feel what his feet feel like, what his calves feel like, what his thighs feel like, what his butt feels like. what her stomach feels like, what her breasts and chest feel like, what her throat feels like, what his head feels like. Are there lights in the head? Can you see energies within? Can you feel energies flowing within? Can you perceive the emptiness that contains all? At first it's dark like the vacuum of space, and gradually you're seeing the light of consciousness which fills darkness with light. All of these are parts of different schools and different experiences. Each school, each way towards enlightenment has its own set of experiences and goals and mileposts. So if you try to go into all of this yourself, trying to discover the absolute truth yourself, without a guide, you can have 11,000 different spiritual experiences and not make a clue or a basic understanding of what any of them mean. Because they don't mean anything. Meaning is a trap or a release. Each school wants you to feel or experience certain sets of states that people in other schools don't perceive. For example, I was having a lot of Kundalini experiences when I went to Mount Baldy to study Zen with Sasaki Roshi. He considered all of these as illusory, and they all disappeared within me. And then I was having the experiences of an entirely different school, one that programmed you to sit very attentively 6 or 7 hours a day and do a lot of physical work between the sitting periods and to answer koans. And I did well at it. It was ecstatic, the kinds of openness I felt and the closeness to nature and becoming one with the world. But then I left to go to San Diego for a while, fool around in La Jolla, until I had the opportunity to go to Los Angeles and go to the International Buddhist Meditation Center, where my teacher was a Zen priest from Vietnam. And then I began to see that there were other Zen masters in the area. I studied under Kozan, Sun San Sunim, and several others, Maizumi Roshi. Every one of them had a different teaching. Every one of them had a different teaching. Every one of them had a different teaching, different koans or no koans, and different ways of sitting, different ways of doing work, different ways of breathing, different books to read. There was no way that anyone could understand anything going to 5 different teachers at the same time. What I'm saying is, the spiritual marketplace is vast. Not only is it filled with many different disciplines and different traditions, each one of which is different from the other. They have in Europe or in Asia nothing to do with each other because they know how incompatible they are with each other. The enlightenment of a Thai Buddhist monk is entirely different from the enlightenment of a Zen Buddhist monk in Japan. The traditions they practice, a Thai monk may do prayers, while a Zen monk would never do prayers. A Tibetan monk might practice Milarepa's heat technique, generation technique, and learn how to dry wet cloths on his back when it's 0 degrees outside as a spiritual practice, or may learn to do kung fu or something else as a matter of discipline, while a Sufi may dance instead and talk about his beloved, while a Shinto person would worship his ancestors. Spirituality is utterly complicated. In 50 years, I've explored a lot of it, but there's so much I haven't explored. You could explore for 1,000 years and not master them all. And it's so confusing. Where do you start? Where do you start? Do you start by going to a Zen center and learning Zazen? Do you read Robert and where he talks about emptiness all the time, or consciousness all the time, and to ignore your body, ignore the world because they don't exist? And what does that do for you? It takes away your suffering, but it also takes away your joy. I guarantee you, if you follow Robert for 8 years, you'll be feeling almost nothing. No emotion, no anger, no fear, no love, no hope as a feeling, no lust. You'll be empty, and you'll have attained a void, which takes away all suffering, but it also takes away all joy. Or do you want to go to the next step and find enlightenment with bliss, welcoming the energies of your humanness, of your body, the subtle body? You see, it's so difficult to choose, especially at the beginning. And by beginning, I mean the first 20 years you're on the trip. Who to go to, who to listen to, what to practice. Shall I practice staring at a wall or at a candle? Shall I practice following my breath? Shall I practice breathing inside, feeling my diaphragm going up and down? Or shall I do body scans, starting with the bottom of my feet, feeling the energies as I attend to each part of the body, feel the prickly energy that's aroused by my attention being on those particular focal points. If you look at your finger and you feel your finger for 1 minute, you'll begin to feel energies, because the energies follow your attention. Whatever you attend to is where the energies go. So what I do, knowing how confusing this is, I really tell people, don't try to understand this. Don't try to understand what enlightenment is. Don't try to understand what Nisargadatta means, what Ramana means, what Robert means, and how they differ with each other. And instead feel into yourself. Get out of your brain. Get out of your head. This is basically the way of Sun San Sunim in many ways, but it's also my way. And then I do an additional thing. I give out energies to try to stir up the energies in you so you can feel them. And if you already can feel them, to feel them more strongly. To send out love from my heart to your heart. To send out waves of Shakti that will surround you, Elizabeth, and twirl and twirl and twirl around you and enter your head and descend into your body. VJ has been waiting for years to feel the energies, and he's finally feeling them. He's finally getting his wish after all these years. And this is what spirituality means to him, is just to feel the energies, which in itself can be enough for some people. I love you all, and I know how confusing all of this can be. I know how difficult it can be, and to have your emotions clashing because you remember what one spiritual person said about how to regard emotions, but you're feeling different emotions than they talked about. So what to do? Who's your guide? Well, you have to get to the place where you can trust yourself. And the only way you can trust yourself is either by following a guide for a long period of time where you've mastered a particular tradition, whether it's the Theravada Buddhist tradition or a Zen tradition or Kashmir Shaivism, which mixes the two. Kashmir Shaivism is the next step after Robert and after Nisargadatta and after Ramana. They talk about enlightenment without bliss. Kashmir Shaivism says, after you've obtained the enlightenment without bliss of Ramana, you need to come back into your body. Look within and find the spiritual body, your feeling body, the subjective body, and feel around inside of there and find your bliss. And this is what Shaktipat is about, to give you an experience of feeling bliss. This is what the teacher does for you, is to give you Shaktipat, to give you the energy, the feeling, to lighten up that emptiness inside of you with energy, with bliss, with ecstasy, so that you feel so thrilled by the presence of God within you. You fall to your knees and then to your feet. You lie down, prostrate yourself before God as an image inside of you. And you feel the energies moving through you, through your legs into your hips, your solar plexus, your heart, your throat, your third eye, your crown. You feel them circulating around your heart in different colors. You feel the descent of golden light of grace from God, which washes you clean of all sins. And finally you say, my God, finally I'm getting somewhere. It feels like I'm actually making progress. You can spend 20 years in emptiness and not get much out of it except emptiness or peace. But when Shakti takes a shine to you, when you've loved enough, when you've worshipped enough and been devotional enough, Shakti shows herself to you as the life force within yourself, which is separate from you, but which is associated with you. Both you and it are made out of the same energy. It appears like your big brother or your big sister, always there with you, with her Shakti comforting you, holding you, loving you, and you loving her back. Spirituality is so difficult if you do too much reading because you're bound to be confused. It could take you 25 years just to understand Nisargadatta, and another 10 years to understand the difference between Nisargadatta and Ramana, let alone going onwards and going past that to Kashmir Shaivism or something like that, where you get the love back that you lost in the void of Buddhism, the void of Robert's emptiness, or the absolute of Ramana. And your whole body comes alive with energies. And once again, you settle into being a human. You go from the identification with the absolute, or with emptiness, or with the void, and you settle into your body. And you find out that your body is not the real thing. The real thing is the spiritual body within you that feels the body, the subtle body that's filled with energies and feelings and emotions. and devotion and love. And once you finally discover the true, deep love, deepest kind of love you can imagine, that goes way beyond the romantic love that people think of, to utter devotion and surrender to someone else. So it's a relational thing as opposed to finding emptiness, which is totally solipsistic. It's totally up to you. But in relational love, the lover or the teacher can give you a spark of energies, can tell you he loves you, and you can feel the love inside your heart. Your heart explodes in love back, in devotion back, in surrender back. And after you've felt that love long enough and deeply enough, one day you become the love. It's like you realize, I don't love somebody. That person is irrelevant to my love. I created that love. That love is in me for somebody else. That other person is only a placeholder for my love. I imagine he or she created that love in me, but it's not the case. That love came from me. I own it. I am it. And then you exist as love for 5 days, 6 days, a week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, a month, 2 months, 5 months. And then one day, God feels appeased. The life force feels pleased and shows you its form, its divine form, in the most ecstatic kind of enlightenment experience you can imagine. Where the energies explode in you, the light of consciousness explodes in you. And you just laugh and laugh at the delight and joy you feel, the bliss you feel, which will come and go, come and go, come and go for years. And even if you lose it, it'll come back. Angela had it strongly in May. But then something happened. Her life is turned upside down by external events. And she's struggling to get back there again. And this is how it goes. You have to have faith in yourself. And if you don't have faith in yourself, faith in your teacher. And you have to be one-directed. Only one hole to dig, not many shallow ones. One deep hole into the Dharma, into the truth, into the earth. Not scattered by 100 different books. You go to Alfred E. Newman's What Me Worry, to Jiddu Krishnamurti, to the other Krishnamurti, U.G. Krishnamurti, to Osho, and read his 305,000 books, to Christopher Isherwood's Bhagavad Gita, to Nisargadatta, Ramana, and all of the others, the teachers of love. You go to Shankarananda and learn Advaita. You take Kashmir Shaivism, Muktananda, for example, or his successors, to learn bliss. It's all so complicated. It's really, really, really complicated. And if you're stupid enough to think you can do it yourself without getting lost, without getting disappointed, without getting waylaid and going off on wild tracks that go nowhere, and then to burn out and then come back a few years later practicing again and burning out because you have no idea where you're going. You don't know what enlightenment is. You don't know what awakening means. You don't know what self-realization means. These are just words to you, concepts, and you may add to the story of these concepts what you think it feels like or what it is, but that's not how it is at all. You have to be empty of all concepts, including enlightenment, including awakening, including self-realization. And just know yourself. And by I mean knowing yourself, all of you inside of yourself, if you really feel yourself, you do have a sense of self. I'll tell you, I didn't know I had a sense of self until 10 years ago because I had studied Buddhism so long. I had no sense of self, none whatsoever. It was only when I started to love and to feel desire, to feel emotions again, to feel trapped in those terrible emotions of loneliness, loss, jealousy, love, hate, anger, that I regained a sense of self because it's palpable, made palpable with emotions. So many in spirituality flee towards some sort of freedom that they think they'd find in emptiness or quietness or peacefulness or in the ultimate. But it's so barren there. It's so dry that it can kill you. It can dry you up like a dry sponge, and you just crack in the heat. Because even after you've attained emptiness and know it as a rescue point from suffering, you come back into the body by doing body scans, by feeling, by going to psychotherapy and getting into your emotions, by going to a guru who emphasizes energies like I do, who give you energies, and you feel them around you during the satsang. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But it's very, very complicated. So don't try to figure it out. Don't read too much. If you have to read Nisargadatta. And if you have to read Nisargadatta, read William Powell's interpretations of Nisargadatta's talks, not Gene Dunn's. Powell's are more powerful. That's to learn Advaita. If you want to learn about Kashmir Shaivism, you come to me, or to Swami Shankarananda, or to David in Sedona, or to Jan Esman in Denmark, or to many others. But there are so many other schools that are westernizations of it, like all of the Tantra stuff you'll see. It's all polluted. Mostly it's about different sexual positions, how to heighten sexuality, how to get more enjoyment out of sexuality, how to withhold the semen, how to separate ejaculation from orgasm, and how to have multiple orgasms for women. But there's no spirituality in it. It's just sensual. Now, awakening sexuality is indeed necessary to awaken the energies within you overall, to awaken Shakti. The sexual chakra is very, very important in its position in inflaming and awakening the other chakras in your body, in your gut, in your womb, in your heart, in your throat, in your mouth, the third eye, the crown chakra, and the chakras above them, and the one below. You learn how to experience them, how to perceive them, how to feel them, how to get them to move and to spin, increase their energy, to increase your own bliss, your own ecstasy, so you're feeling ecstatic most of the time. And you feel the energies very strongly. And you begin to get hints of what knowing God is like. Then one day, if you continue your efforts without fail, whether it's for 40 years or 60 years, you will find God within you, and it'll all be worth the effort. But I tell you, it's a hard path. It's so easy to get distracted, Maria. It's so easy to get distracted by everything. Everything can distract you. How many books have I read in different traditions trying to figure things out? Mark too, I bet. Michael, I know, has read and read and read and read. Does anybody have any questions?
Ed? Hi, Ed.
Who's speaking?
Michael T.
Okay, Michael T.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's kind of a bold question, but I'll ask it anyway. Once a person passes, do they continue to spiritually grow, and what's the evolutionary steps, and are they still conscious?
How the fuck should I know? I'm not dead. Everybody has their own theory. Robert says that's the end. There is no personal self or soul that goes on. Eric Pepin says for 4 or 5 minutes after death, you're very scared because your body's dead, but you're still conscious of everything that's going on and the fact that you're dying. Everybody has a different theory. I choose not to have any theories. It's difficult enough now just for me to be in this life, let alone worry about what's going to be happening in the future. I refuse to worry about future states. They're all imaginary. It's all speculation. Everybody has a different answer. You take what you want. And if you don't like what you hear from one person, you go to the next one to just feel satisfied and say, yeah, I like that guy. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yeah.
Mark Anderson, what do you do for a living?
I sell electronics in a store.
What kind of electronics? Consumer electronics?
Yes. One thing I'd like to say is that I'm kind of tired of being very verbal, but I feel compelled to make some comments. Thanks to your help, I feel like I've reached my destination, at least for now. And I know I've said this before, but I feel like I've woken up into my cosmic self of divine origin. What I mean by that is every time I'd have some kind of transcendental or spiritual experience dating back to my birth, it would seem to be parceled out temporarily under certain conditions and very, very rarely. Now I abide in the place where I feel like I'm abiding in the body where all those experiences came from on an ongoing basis. So I go, instead of relying on person, place, or thing to bring the bliss, I go to the source of my Shakti, where the bliss and intelligence and where everything originates. And it's very palpable. And I'm a very feeling person. And your path is obviously one of intense feeling, and I'm an intense feeler. So it's a very good fit for me. And the Shakti pot, I feel like I feel it. And everything you talk about, I feel like I'm already there, at least, you know, to the extent that I can. And right now I feel like 100% there. More and more, it's a backdrop to my day-to-day life. And what I do with in my job is I transmit sweetness, trust, and joy to strangers. So I feel like they are getting some of my stuff.
Good for you.
I feel like that's part of my path, is to continue doing my job. It's funny you should ask me about it.
Good for you. That's what everybody should do. As soon as they get some joy, to help others get that joy. Good for you. Now, let me ask you another question. Do you feel like you live in a different dimension now than you did 5 years ago?
Yes, I feel like what I've been seeking my whole life has finally been found. Like I no longer seek, I just work to abide in what I found. I work to strengthen that connection, which I no longer feel like I'm connecting to it. I feel like I am it. I feel like it's my body now.
But the bliss and joy that you feel,
Yeah,
does it make you feel different from the way you felt 5 years ago as a human?
100%. I feel like I said, I feel like I've come to the source from where everything, all the bliss and joy and calmness and multidimensional joy originates, which is the true self, which is cosmic or divine in origin, because it is ineffable. And the when I say multidimensional, not only is it obviously a physical bliss, but it's also an intellectual, spiritual, psychological bliss as well. It keeps me in rapture. It keeps me occupied in bliss on a holistic level.
Are you afraid of losing it?
No,
Okay.
that's why I keep coming here, Ed.
Okay. Elizabeth, do you have any questions? You're a newcomer. You're allowed 300 questions.
Oh, good. I feel like I have a lot of questions. Can you hear me okay?
No, it's hard to hear you.
I don't know exactly how to make it better. Is it just cutting out or is it
No,
quiet?
it's good now. It's good now.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think I'm in a kind of unusual position in that, like, I guess I don't meet a lot of people who relate to my internal situation. But
Do you feel like a stranger in a strange land?
absolutely, that's one of my the titles of a playlist I made.
Everybody here feels that or comes from that place.
Yeah.
You wonder why, what the fuck are these people going about? What are they doing anyway? Right?
Oh, you mean these people?
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's totally. I guess, you know, the last person, he said he's a very strong feeler. I would say I'm sort of naturally, I'm a very strong thinker, in the sense that, like, the beginning of my spiritual journey was like very intellectual. It wasn't even a spiritual journey. It just started out as an intellectual question of, like, how can I know what's true, you know, and like how can I base my life on things that I have, that I don't know if they're true, you know. So it was kind of just like digging into that was the beginning. But then I guess now things have gotten a lot crazier and I have a lot less words to say about them. So I really have no idea where I am or anything.
Don't know mind is pretty good.
What?
Not knowing is pretty good.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately where you're going to go. But you'll accept not knowing as okay because you'll be into feeling.
Yeah, I guess when I have been more feely, it's been, I feel like those are the times when I've known more, like not with my head, but that I haven't been wondering about things, you know. Just right now, as in like this week, I've been much more wondering, or at least just more feeling more like kind of lost. And I read Autobiography of a Jnani. That was like how I found you, was through that, because this was just like last week. I felt like, you know, I was really like, didn't know what was going on, and I felt like I needed to be recentered, and I found that thing and I read it, and it was pretty, I guess it just, Ramana has always been a really big thing for me. in my spiritual life. And in a way, that autobiography kind of brought me back to the working aspect of the spiritual life versus just the like, this is so wonderful, you know, which is the last thing I was doing.
What kind of work do you do?
Like, what do you mean? Like for money or
Yeah,
inside of it?
occupation.
I'm just like working in a restaurant right now as a busser. So I'm like, before I started all this spiritual stuff, I was gonna be a researcher, and like I finished college and I started working in a lab and I was doing that kind of thing. But pretty quickly I just decided that that wasn't gonna cut it for me. So since then I've been like, after that I went traveling in India and stuff for a few months, and then I came back here and I'm living with my parents, and I'm working in a restaurant.
I'll tell you one secret. No book you read will ever satisfy you long, because new questions will come up. Until you make that transition between thinking and the locus of consciousness up here in your brain, and then dropping the locus of your consciousness into your heart or into your gut. When you go from being a thinker to a feeler, the mind becomes so secondary that all of the distractions and things that bother you now will totally disappear. And it's not that difficult, and it's not that easy at the same time. To state the solution is easy. To actually do it and to drop your mind, drop the focus of your attention, your center of gravity from your mind, from your brain, into your heart. It's not like learning how to love or anything like that. It's literally just dropping your attention, have it descend through your head, into your mouth, into your neck, into your chest, and maybe down into your gut or your womb area. And then everything changes when you do that. Your mind will complain that you're just being stupid and wasting time, that you're like an animal. And why be like an animal when you can think? Thinking is what you're all about. But if you can get out of thinking into feeling, into your heart, into your gut, it opens up a whole new world in a different way. First of all, you're going to start feeling emotions in a different way than you feel them now. They don't attack you, but they emanate from you. And you can use their energy of those emotions to make your body stronger, more energetic. You can eat those emotions and convert them to pure energy, bliss, to enlightenment. And it's very different from reading Ramana, who, from my point of view, is a complete asshole. Sorry about that.
I like him.
But he only went halfway. He only went to the absolute. He only went to emptiness. He only went to everything is consciousness. But there's no bliss in him. There's no life force in him. And Nisargadatta too. Nisargadatta played with the energies early, but he didn't continue it. And Robert, I'll tell you, was absolutely dead. He was like a zombie. You can, if you want that kind of peace that comes with Ramana and Robert, you can have it. I enjoy coming alive again out of that emptiness, out of the absolute. And I can't recommend any books for you except for reading my Facebook page and my blog. But I recommend certain books like Quantum Touch, The Power to Heal, in order to find the energies within yourself. I can send it to you in a PDF form if you want, if you email me. I recommend reading Muktananda's The Play of Consciousness, which is his autobiography of the spiritual experiences he went through. But it's about the body and your inner body, not about the mind, not about the absolute and consciousness and all of these abstract concepts that don't mean anything in a practical level. It's about being experiential and being human at the same time, learning to love once again, learning to put that ahead of trying to understand. Love your cat, love your dog, love your house, love your partner, love everyone. Do you feel any energies now?
I I don't know like what of the things I'm currently experiencing I would classify as energies versus anything else, but I mean there are things.
No, if you felt the energies, you would know it. Stay tuned. Stick around. You'll
Okay.
feel it. Anybody else? Anybody have a question? Or an answer? Hi, Walker.
So recently I've been listening to more Robert, and the talks that are jumping out at me are ones where he goes on about his love and bliss and joy. And I try to listen to him with an open heart, what he really means by that. What do you think's going on? Do you think he's in just such a peaceful place, he kind of sells it with that wording, or do you think he's experiencing it in some different way that's hard to detect? I mean, why would he speak that way?
Well, the kind of peace he talks about has a very subtle aspect of bliss too, but he doesn't emphasize the bliss at all to me. When I was around him, he said, he talked about me in the third person to the Sangha as a whole, that Ed doesn't emphasize the bliss, and he's being smart there. So he talks about bliss on the one hand, but mostly he talks about emptiness and nothingness and the absolute. Well, he doesn't use the term absolute that much, but Brahman. And I never knew what Brahman meant. Just like with him, I never knew what self meant either. So I don't know what Robert experienced, except that all that I know is when I experienced Robert, there was nobody there. It was the emptiest person I ever met. Emptier than any of the Zen masters. So I don't know what he means, what he meant, what he felt. I wish he were back here. Sometimes I'd ask him more directed questions like that. What do you feel?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember that being asked to him much during any of the satsangs. What do you feel now, Robert? Yeah. It's been a long time, so I don't remember.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Anything else? Any complaints about my delivery? Well, I'll see you next Thursday then at 11 o'clock for those who want to come. We'll see how much longer we continue the twice a week. Remember, I love you all. And I'll send a little extra Shakti right now to all of you, if you can feel it. Let it run through your body. Hold on to it. Make it your own. Invite Shakti to come into you, to kindle your heart's flame with its flame. Kindle my heart's flame with thy flame, O Guru. Kindle my heart's flame with thine. O Lord of the universe, kindle my heart's flame with thine. Bye-bye.